I've got to say that this $30 Casio is pretty cool. I like the size and I like the form factor, but is it going to be eating for breakfast any G-Shocks anytime soon? Well, we've got it in the studio and we have a G-Shock that reluctantly agreed to participate in this experiment, so let us put these two in the ring, so to speak, and of course, find out. Hello and welcome to the channel. It was never my intention to have a Casio watch collection, but the collection is now growing and it looks like there is more to come, so don't forget to subscribe by hitting that big subscribe button so you don't miss any new Casio reviews. Okay, a bit of a spoiler alert, this watch is unlikely to be making a meal out of a G-Shock, so good news for our G-Shock guinea pig friend over here. However, this doesn't mean that we can stop the video and go and buy a G-Shock, which is at least 3 times more expensive. Well, this one is actually about 6 times more expensive than this MWD-110H model. The thing is that in some areas this humble square Casio comes pretty close, and being priced considerably cheaper, this one could be more suitable for your particular use case. So let's run through the key areas of this watch and see how it stacks up against almighty G-Shock. Also, I will use this particular G-Shock model GWB5600 as a reference only, because in some functional areas it is more sophisticated compared to your more or less average square G-Shock. I'm talking about things like solar battery, 6-band atomic timekeeping and Bluetooth connectivity, to name a few. I will leave a link in the description to a full review of this G-Shock if you want to see more details. Price? Well, this Casio is sold for about 34 British pounds here in the UK, which is equivalent to 43 US dollars, and for around $30 in the US. Well, either the currency conversion rules don't really apply to Casio, maybe Casio just really likes US customers, well, somewhat more than UK ones. Well, regardless, it is still reasonably priced and will not break the bank, which is good. So the price category, in my opinion, goes to this MWD-110 watch. In terms of packaging, well, I won't rate it, so let's see if I can cover it in under 10 seconds. We have cardboard box, user manual, warranty card, a tag, and all-important disposal safety instructions, and the watch. Alright, dimensions. Well, this is an interesting one. So this MWD-110 case is 47.2mm wide, 12.3mm high and 50.8mm measured lug to lug, which might look larger than a square G-Shock dimensions. Here is, for example, dimensions of DW5600 G-Shock. However, there is a GBD200, or probably more appropriately GBX100 series, which not only looks almost like a twin to this watch, but also has a very similar dimensions of 50.9mm by 46mm by 14.7mm, even ever so slightly larger when it comes to case height. Which is actually for a good reason, as we will see shortly. So, for all intents and purposes, it looks like we have a draw in this category. Well, to fully complete the overview of the dimensions, we have 80mm lugs, which is not particularly relevant because we are very unlikely to change this pretty decent resin strap. This strap will cover wrists from just over 6 inches, which is 15.5 centimeters, to just over 9 inches, which is 23.5 centimeters in circumference. So, very versatile. I will include wrist shots on a 7-inch and on a 6.25-inch wrist later in this video. And this MWD-110 Casio weighs 50 grams, kind of similar to what a G-Shock family siblings weigh as well. So we have a score of 2-1 after the dimensions, and this watch is leading. Bracelet. Okay, a full resin bracelet is about 26.5mm wide at the point of attachment to the case. Then it has a slight taper down to about 21mm, and then it is the same width all the way down to the end. It has a point of articulation where it is clipped to the case, which I like because it actually allows for this watch to lay flat on the desk, something that we cannot do with most G-Shocks because of the specific G-Shock design. The resin material is nice and pliable and fits well around the wrist, and a wide keepers helps to keep the residual part of the band in check. The bracelet design allows for ventilation spaces close to the watch head. Okay, it is not as good as on GBX 100 bracelet, which is designed specifically for surfing and other extreme sports in mind, however, it is still okay. And a fairly short lug-to-lug distance of 50mm combined with a lug angle down design allows for a comfortable wrist fit, as you can see on my about 7-inch wrist. And with 50 grams weight, it is feather light on the wrist too. And here is, for reference, this Casio on a 6¼ inch wrist. Looks pretty good, despite its somewhat larger size. Okay, to be absolutely fair, I would prefer a strap from the GBX 100, and I would prefer the bracelet from this G-SHOCK here. However, if we are to compare this MWD-110 strap to a stock entry-level G-SHOCK, well, this strap is not much different and not less or more flexible. So, after very careful consideration and consulting with VIP members of the jury, that is, myself, I think we have another draw here. So the current score is 3-2, and this watch is still in the lead. Okay, the case. I really like the case design on this watch, however, it does have one major flaw, which of course we will come to in a moment. So I will ignore the internals, because G-SHOCK does have reinforced core design that, well, makes it a G-SHOCK. So we will look at the external part, or what we can see and touch kind of thing. So, we have a GBX 100-like case shape and dimensions, which I think is pretty cool. Well, the fact that the GBX 100 series is so popular is a strong testament to how attractive and well received was this design by Casio fans. Personally, I'm not entirely sure if I would prefer it over a somewhat smaller square G-SHOCK case. However, in terms of ergonomics, I think this design is definitely superior. The 4 buttons are larger and much easier to operate. The light button located at the bottom of the dial is also very easy to use. Then, of course, we get the brushed metal bezel, which I personally really like, and I think it contributes a lot to this watch and to the GBX 100 popularity. And in terms of execution and build quality, the bezel on this MWD Casio is actually not much different to the one on GBX 100. Brushed metal, engraved blackened markings for a better longevity, and even some kind of decorative screws for more interesting visual design. So, thank you Casio. And I think somewhere at this point Casio designers thought, wait a minute, this $30 watch is turning out to be way too awesome. We need to do something, to spoil the design of this watch, something that makes it less awesome. Oh yes, how about we make the dial glass to protrude above the metal bezel, so it totally defeats the purpose of the metal bezel, which meant to protect the glass in the first place. And to drive the message home, we will replace the glass with the see-through plastic and call it, and I quote from the Casio technical specification, strong but flexible and shatterproof. So yes, a bit disappointing. However, I must say that in the last couple of weeks that I was testing and filming this watch, I wasn't exactly super careful and gentle and basically used it as I would use any other watch, and yet I don't see a single scratch on this plastic crystal. Also, being a plastic, it should be very easy to buff it out in case I do end up with a few scratches. So, if you're not going to be using this watch in a super tough environment, this still could work for you. And to end the case overview on a good note, here is something I actually really like about it. It is the 100 meters of water resistance. Okay, it is not a 200 meters of G-SHOCK, but 100 meters of water resistance, according to Casio user manual, is plenty sufficient not just for swimming, but even for skin diving, which is pretty cool. Still, after very careful consideration and reviewing all the facts, I decided, that this round of course goes to G-SHOCK. Right, functions. Well, despite its modest price, this watch actually has all the functions that I personally need in the watch. Date, stopwatch, timer, dual time, so we can actually track another time zone, for example, alarm and the light. Alarm has a daily alarm option and an option to beep every hour, although I'm not sure how useful beeping every hour is unless I'm really bored at work and I can't wait to finally get out of the office and I want to make sure that my boss is well aware of it. But that aside, if we are to combine all these functions with a 10-year battery life, we will get very close to functionality of the entry-level square G-SHOCK. Okay, as we climb up the functionality complexity ladder of G-SHOCK, we'll have more on offer, like this one I have here, GW-B5600 with Bluetooth connectivity and atomic timekeeping, or the GBX100, which has a tight graph and a Moon Age display. How useful are those functions to you? Well, you decide. However, because most G-SHOCKs come with the same or more complex functionality, I think this round should go to G-SHOCK. Okay, before we come to a verdict, let's look at one more thing that I actually really like about this watch. That is the display. Okay, we don't get here Casio's new high-definition MIP memory in pixel display technology like on the GBX100 for example, but I think this $30 watch is still very legible. This model is actually available with normal and negative display options, and I specifically bought a negative display one so I could compare it to my negative display G-SHOCK. This G-SHOCK doesn't use memory in pixel display technology either, but I find this new display on this basic Casio is a bit more contrasty and with a bit better legibility, especially under sharp viewing angles. However, if we look at the display illumination, even though the illumination on this watch is pretty good, the G-SHOCK illumination looks more even and easier to read. So this is a bit of a tough one, but because most of the G-SHOCKs still don't utilize the MIP or memory in pixel technology, I think this one is a draw. Okay, the verdict. So as you can see, the score is pretty close, but if we take into account that this watch doesn't have the technology that will allow it to withstand the truck driving over it, that is what makes a G-SHOCK a G-SHOCK, we can safely conclude that no, this is not quite a G-SHOCK killer, but rather a brilliant move from Casio marketing team. It does look to me that Casio wanted to make sure that they don't miss that market segment of the Casio fans who love Casio and love the look of GBX100 but don't really need all the G-SHOCK related functionality, but still have $30 to spend on their beloved brand. What do you think? Will you get one? Well, please do let us know in the comments. And if you find this review helpful, please don't forget to do all those important things like smash the like button and of course subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, thank you for watching, take care, look after yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.